How can ordinary companies become digital superstars? The Live Enterprise. Business can learn from nature, learn to sense, reason, and respond like a living organism. Through years of research and experience, Infosys and the Knowledge Institute found the patterns in nature that drive innovation. Evolve by emulating nature's genius. Just like plants and animals, companies must evolve to survive and look to nature for clues about how to succeed in the digital age. For example, an octopus has 9 brains which push decisions to the edge. What can we learn from this amazing creature? The most resilient organisms are the most adaptable in nature and in the corporate world. See what a flock of birds can teach us about agile teams at scale and collaborating as nature intended. People, planet, and prosperity are 3 connected strands of enterprise DNA. Yet, questions remain about how to make it happen. Ultimately, nature has an answer for humanity. I'm Jeff Kavanaugh, head of the Infosys Knowledge Institute and co-author of the book The Live Enterprise. Visit our website at infosys.com/liveenterprisethebook to learn more about creating a continuously evolving and learning organization. How can ordinary companies become digital superstars? The Live Enterprise. Business can learn from nature, learn to sense, reason, and respond like a living organism. Through years of research and experience, Infosys and the Knowledge Institute found the patterns in nature that drive innovation. Evolve by emulating nature's genius. Just like plants and animals, companies must evolve to survive and look to nature for clues about how to succeed in the digital age. For example, an octopus has 9 brains which push decisions to the edge. What can we learn from this amazing creature? The most resilient organisms are the most adaptable in nature and in the corporate world. See what a flock of birds can teach us about agile teams at scale and collaborating as nature intended. People, planet, and prosperity are 3 connected strands of enterprise DNA. Yet, questions remain about how to make it happen. Ultimately, nature has an answer for humanity. I'm Jeff Kavanaugh, head of the Infosys Knowledge Institute and co-author of the book The Live Enterprise. Visit our website at infosys.com/liveenterprisethebook to learn more about creating a continuously evolving and learning organization. How can ordinary companies become digital superstars? The Live Enterprise. Business can learn from nature, learn to sense, reason, and respond like a living organism. Through years of research and experience, Infosys and the Knowledge Institute found the patterns in nature that drive innovation. Evolve by emulating nature's genius. Just like plants and animals, companies must evolve to survive and look to nature for clues about how to succeed in the digital age. For example, an octopus has 9 brains which push decisions to the edge. What can we learn from this amazing creature? The most resilient organisms are the most adaptable in nature and in the corporate world. See what a flock of birds can teach us about agile teams at scale and collaborating as nature intended. People, planet, and prosperity are 3 connected strands of enterprise DNA. Yet, questions remain about how to make it happen. Ultimately, nature has an answer for humanity. I'm Jeff Kavanaugh, head of the Infosys Knowledge Institute and co-author of the book The Live Enterprise. Visit our website at infosys.com/liveenterprisethebook to learn more about creating a continuously evolving and learning organization. How can ordinary companies become digital superstars? The Live Enterprise. Business can learn from nature, learn to sense, reason, and respond like a living organism. Through years of research and experience, Infosys and the Knowledge Institute found the patterns in nature that drive innovation. Evolve by emulating nature's genius. Just like plants and animals, companies must evolve to survive and look to nature for clues about how to succeed in the digital age. For example, an octopus has 9 brains which push decisions to the edge. What can we learn from this amazing creature? The most resilient organisms are the most adaptable in nature and in the corporate world. See what a flock of birds can teach us about agile teams at scale and collaborating as nature intended. People, planet, and prosperity are 3 connected strands of enterprise DNA. Yet, questions remain about how to make it happen. Ultimately, nature has an answer for humanity. I'm Jeff Kavanaugh, head of the Infosys Knowledge Institute and co-author of the book The Live Enterprise. Visit our website at infosys.com/liveenterprisethebook to learn more about creating a continuously evolving and learning organization. How can ordinary companies become digital superstars? The Live Enterprise. Business can learn from nature, learn to sense, reason, and respond like a living organism. Through years of research and experience, Infosys and the Knowledge Institute found the patterns in nature that drive innovation. Evolve by emulating nature's genius. Just like plants and animals, companies must evolve to survive and look to nature for clues about how to succeed in the digital age. For example, an octopus has 9 brains which push decisions to the edge. What can we learn from this amazing creature? The most resilient organisms are the most adaptable in nature and in the corporate world. See what a flock of birds can teach us about agile teams at scale and collaborating as nature intended. People, planet, and prosperity are 3 connected strands of enterprise DNA. Yet, questions remain about how to make it happen. Ultimately, nature has an answer for humanity. I'm Jeff Kavanaugh, head of the Infosys Knowledge Institute and co-author of the book The Live Enterprise. Visit our website at infosys.com/liveenterprisethebook to learn more about creating a continuously evolving and learning organization.
Shafir, teleprompter, can you just give me? A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Padma Bhamadipati, and it is my privilege to be your host today. We are proud to share the launch of the Live Enterprise book with you. The Live Enterprise introduces an operating model that was developed, refined, and proven to work at Infosys. At the height of the pandemic, it was the model that enabled 240,000 of our employees to switch to remote work in a matter of days. Ultimately, it is the model delivering for 1,000 Infosys clients around the world. The Live Enterprise book is a guide to how large companies can operate like digital superstars. Further, it is the operating model for stakeholder capitalism, essential to the next generation of business. Please join me in welcoming the authors of the Live Enterprise book, Jeff Kavanaugh and Rafi Tarafdar. We are launching the Live Enterprise today in India because, in many ways, it is India's gift to the business world. To mark this occasion, we are joined by Nandan Nilekani, Infosys co-founder and chairman of the board. Nandan has authored the foreword to the Live Enterprise, and it is my privilege to invite Nandan to unveil the book for all of you, followed by a keynote address. Welcome, Nandan. May I now request you to unveil the Live Enterprise book. Nandan, if you could please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Padma. It's great to be here at this launch of the Live Enterprise book. I have the book here right in front of me. I'm opening it up, and here we are. We have the Live Enterprise book all set to go, and this is fantastic. And now let me spend a few minutes talking to you about the Live Enterprise idea. As Padma mentioned, the Live Enterprise is an idea of how firms will be run in the future, and a lot of it has actually come out from our own experience at Infosys. Over the last 3 years, Infosys has been on a major drive of reinventing itself, making itself more agile, completely re-architecting its digital infrastructure, creating a very, very active learning platform, which we call Lex, and to Wingspan to our customers, creating a way for employees to interact with the company digitally wherever they are on their phones using the Infimi app, and then during the pandemic using the Meridian collaboration tool on which we are conducting this particular event right now. So we have learned a great deal from this experience, and we have also taken this experience to 1,000 clients around the world. And this combined knowledge of what we learned from our own reinvention, as well as applying our knowledge to other clients, has all been distilled by Rafi and Jeff into this excellent book, which we think is a guidepost for anyone looking at this journey. Now, why is this journey happening at all? The reason is that over the last decade, thanks to the consumer revolution, we have seen a lot of dramatic changes in the way technology is used. We have seen the rise of the cloud, and more people are migrating their applications to a combination of public and private cloud. We are seeing the consumerization of user experience, because people want the same experience on their enterprise apps which they get on their consumer apps. We have seen the rise of big data, and then the application of deep learning and AI, which makes it possible to automate and use intuitive AI in a whole variety of things. There's a big drive in our enterprise clients to modernize the systems and take legacy infrastructure and bring it to the modern world. We have seen the rise of platformization, digital platforms, and we in turn have our own platforms like Lex and so on. And then there's been the rise of open source, as many of these large cloud-based platforms, the underlying software has been built with open source. So we are seeing all these trends, and the pandemic has demonstrated that companies cannot really manage today without being digitally very, very agile. And therefore, the pandemic has accelerated the whole journey of going from what you were in every industry. As many people have said, that the pandemic brought forth changes that happened in a matter of weeks, what would normally have taken several years. And the pandemic also separated the companies that are digitally savvy from those that are not. And therefore, we're seeing an increased rush across the world to become digitally savvy companies. However, many companies that existed before the internet revolution still have a lot of their legacy systems, and they need to have a roadmap and a pathway to make themselves become a digitally native organization which means they need to be very incredibly agile and responsive. They need to be able to operate on different strategies based on the circumstances. They need to have a great user experience of everything that they do. Every interaction, be it by an employee, an investor, a customer, a client, should be digital in nature. They need to leverage the power of big data and AI and have a digital brain that allows them to accelerate the work they do, improve productivity, and accelerate the flow of ideas within their organizations. They need to be able to respond very quickly to external stimuli and changes so that they can respond and so on. And as Padma mentioned, a great example of that was when the pandemic struck at Infosys. We were able to respond very quickly, mainly because we already had the digital infrastructure for remote working. It was designed for only some members of maybe 10% of the employees working from home. But it was there, the infrastructure and the architecture was there, and all the necessary cyber security checks had been put into that network. So it was simply a question of scaling up from 10% of the employees working from home to 100% of the employees working from home. And that was something which Infosys was able to do in a matter of days across 40 countries, across 240,000 employees. And that was one of the principal reasons why Infosys was able to bounce back and continue to deliver to its employees far better than anybody else. So the Live Enterprise has demonstrated the value of all this. And we also believe when we began on the Live Enterprise journey 3 years back, we said that unless we make Infosys a digital native, we do not have the credibility to tell this to our clients. We said that we should walk the talk of what we are saying. We should implement it within and then only take it out. And so over the last three years, we have been on a Live Enterprise journey. It's a journey, it's not a destination, because every time we have to think of new ideas in what makes a Live Enterprise work. And all of the ideas are distilled in this book. We also came out with a plan to have a company-wide release of our digital infrastructure every 6 weeks. And we chose 6 weeks because we wanted to create a company that was quick, that was responsive, that could deliver software in 6 week cycles. And today we are on the 16th release of our software. And in each release, we bring new value to our customers. Some of it could be better user experience. Some of it could be process busting so that you remove some non-value adding process. Some of it could be better collaboration tools. Some of it could be better use of the digital brain that we have. Some of it could be using AI to automate and improve things like recruitment or training or anything else. Some of it could be collaboration tools, as I mentioned. So basically, we keep improving. We also have, as part of our Live Enterprise, the idea of micro change management, and saying that you want to change an organization globally, digitally, across so many countries, so many employees. You need to have a digital way of managing the micro changes, and that allows us to actually have a roadmap of change. And that's again part of the Live Enterprise. So Live Enterprise has many, many things to offer. The most important thing, as I said, it comes from experience. It comes from our own use of these things. So when we talk to our clients or when we talk to you about the Live Enterprise, we're not giving you a theoretical presentation. We're not doing a PowerPoint for you. We're doing it based on being in the trenches and Infosys, all the employees collectively working to enable all this to work. And it covers, software development, operations, training, the whole thing. It's also, Live Enterprise also about getting ready for the cloud. As you know, Infosys has been at the leadership of the cloud and it has launched the Cobalt infrastructure. It's also about how do we operate in a future world where there are multiple clouds. Some of them are public clouds, some of them are private clouds, and therefore the whole polycloud infrastructure of Live Enterprise allows you to operate across clouds in an abstracted manner, which is critical to the abstraction that is going to evolve in the coming years on top of the cloud. So I think Live Enterprise has lots to offer for everyone, and we do hope that you will enjoy this book, learn from it, and Infosys and my colleagues will be more than happy to share with you more ideas as you shape the journey to become a digital native and take advantage of the dramatic opportunities that are coming in the world and that have been accelerated by COVID. So once again, thank you, and thank you, Padma, for this opportunity. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Nandan, for an inspiring keynote address. Well, shall we say it was a masterclass and a very experiential one too. With that, we move on to our next segment. Here, we will just... Thank you. Thank you so much, Nandan. We now move on to our next segment. Here, we will discuss some of the key concepts of the book, The Live Enterprise, with the authors. I would like to take this opportunity to formally introduce them to all of us. Jeff Kavanaugh is Vice President and Global Head of the Infosys Knowledge Institute, our research and thought leadership arm. Launched in 2018, the Knowledge Institute is an award-winning team of producers, editors, journalists, and analysts that publish over 200 thought leadership works every year. Rafi Tarafdar is Senior Vice President and Chief Technology Officer of the Strategic Technology Group at Infosys. Rafi leads the company's unit of technology strategists who define and drive large digital and cloud transformation programs and build Infosys platforms. Thank you for joining us today, gentlemen. The Live Enterprise is a phenomenal body of work. Over the course of the next hour, we will try and glean some insights from its authors, Rafi and Jeff. With that, Rafi, if I could start with you. What are the roots of the Live Enterprise? How did it begin?
Yeah, thanks so much, Padma, and good morning to all of you. As Nandan said, the journey of Live Enterprise started about 3 years back when, Nandan, when he joined us back as the chairman of the company, he had delivered population scale platforms. He had seen a lot of these different startups and open source. And when he joined us, he said, we need to reimagine Infosys, because Infosys is also a 40-year-old company, right? We have to reimagine the experience, we have to reimagine the process, and we also need to create the shared digital infrastructure. And the interesting thing is, if you look at our clients are also going through the same transformation journey, because our clients are also reimagining the experience, reimagining the processes, and they are creating the shared digital infrastructure. So in that way, he said, whatever we come up with is something that would be applicable not only to us, but it would be very relevant to the journey that our clients are taking. And with that, he defined few key objectives for us. And he said, the first thing is we have to have the agility of a startup so that, we can do things fairly quickly. We have to be fully networked and connected so that every employee, every salesperson, every delivery person has tools and information at their fingertips that they can use in order to be very relevant to clients. We have to be very responsive to customer needs and also to the changing business needs, like what happened with COVID. We were able to react because we had already done a lot of work to be resilient. And the most important thing he said is we need to walk the talk, right? And that, in my view, was the master stroke, because walking the talk enabled us to mature our thinking. And as we went through our own Infosys transformation, we started creating IP and platforms that now today we are taking it to accelerate our clients' transformation journey in order to drive better value and better relevance. So that's how essentially the entire journey started. So we are now 3 years into the journey. And every 6 weeks, we do these releases, and Nandan himself actually sits through our release review. So that's the extent of passion and involvement that he has with this whole Live Enterprise.
Thank you so much, Rafi. Thank you so much, Rafi. So, Jeff, my next question to you. What differentiates the Live Enterprise from other operating models?
Thanks for the question. First of all, what is an operating model? It's a term you hear a lot about in business. It's supposed to translate strategy, these big ideas, into execution, where real work gets done. And too often, there's information loss, there's time loss. And so one of the things we wanted to make sure with Live Enterprise is that you didn't have that loss. Companies for years have tried to emulate startups and become more flexible. They tried design thinking, lean startup, even parts of digital transformation. And to a large extent, these things have not been successful at scale. They've been flexible, maybe they're agile teams, maybe small projects, but people just couldn't scale them. Or if they tried to be very efficient, then they weren't very flexible. And so we wanted to design from the start something that could evolve and was flexible, even down to the architecture itself. If you think about it, we want to transform these mature companies, like Nandan said, into digital natives. What does that mean? Well, first of all, even in a very digital world, it has to be human-centric, where automation and AI enhance but don't replace people. It's a very important concept. Also, you need to keep this startup speed and agility even at scale. So you got to sense what's going on and make decisions quickly. So that connection is so important. And that connection becomes networked in this word sentient, which means very highly aware. So based upon all this input, you can make decisions quickly. What's the tech? And the decisions and governance needed to do that. And then if you have all these teams running around, creating great ideas and growing, you still can't have a bunch of small project teams. At some point, companies must scale. And in groups, in fact, our company, Rafi, leads this, a central group that runs tools, that runs technology, so it's consistent across the company. So someone with a good idea somewhere can rapidly launch and can take off. And if they have a good idea that takes off, then they can share the best of that idea, unbundle it elsewhere. And so it's that combination of local versus central, and fundamentally that you're always learning. It's a continuous learning innovation culture.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Very insightful indeed. So, Rafi, if I could then pose the next one to you. How has the coronavirus pandemic challenged businesses' operating principles?
Yeah, I think it has done, in my view, in three important ways, right? So first, if you look at it, there has been a shift from the whole great moderation to the great reset in under a decade. And what this showed is only the companies that are resilient were able to make the most of these opportunities, right? And resiliency also means in this whole pandemic situation is having an anytime, anywhere operating model, which means employees can access information, perform services that they want anytime, anywhere, using digital tools that are provided to them, right? So that's the first thing. The second is the convergence of tech that was already, ongoing with cloud, with AI, with API microservices, and with experience, and also with data, now is getting accelerated significantly, and they're all coming together, right? And what's essentially happening is the new platforms and the new acceleration of cloud and digital initiatives that are happening. This is accelerating a lot more, and we see that a significant investment and acceleration is happening in this area. Third is the focus on employee and employee experience is increasing. So earlier it used to be only on clients and customers, but now the focus is also shifting to employees and also to sustainability, right? So being sustainable and doing it in a right way is becoming a lot more important now, post-pandemic.
Thank you, Rafi. Taking on the point of sustainability, the concept of nature is crucial to the Live Enterprise. Before I pose my next question to Jeff, let's take a look at this video.
Businesses can learn a lot from birds. The flock's flexible architecture easily adapts to change. Could it be the best operating model is none at all? The Live Enterprise, create a continuously evolving and learning organization.
So Jeff, how can companies become more competitive by emulating nature?
Live Enterprise takes its name from this metaphor of a living organism, and it shares practical examples that we drew from nature. And one of the most rewarding aspects of this personally for me as we developed the book and the content, besides working with the great folks in our company, was talking with the explorers, talking with leading environmentalists and people who are global influencers in sustainability, and drawing some of these lessons. The example you saw, murmuration, which is a fancy word for all those birds flying so beautifully together, you notice there was no alpha bird, there was no lead bird. They all worked together as a series of teams, every bird taking its cue from the six around it. It's like agile in a natural sense. And so we wanted to see, how could we do that? That's one example. If you look at the octopus, did you know it has 9 brains? 1 in each arm plus a central one, and that brain in each arm can actually make independent decisions. It's really making decisions at the edge. And yet, it's not just being independent, 8 arms flopping around. They're connected back to headquarters. They get a good idea, they sense something, they share it, so the rest of the organism gets it. And although this is beautiful and elegant and seems simple, as you peel it back, there's a lot of complexity about chemicals and transmissions and feedback loops and resilience and redundancies built in that we could actually take and learn from. And there are many examples. Last one I'll mention quickly, the gray wolves in Yellowstone Park, as they were removed and then reintroduced, this whole impact of one species as a keystone in a whole ecosystem or value chain, in this case a food chain literally, it showed the impact like our own supply chains, our own value chains or employee networks, that a role that you might not think is important has secondary and tertiary implications that are huge. Like, for example, there might be in your mobile device, there might be a small rare earth mineral that is only mined in maybe a conflict area. And if you don't have traceability, which is enabled by blockchain, which is enabled through certain capabilities in your value chain, you might not be able to show where it came from and fulfill regulatory requirements. So we drew this in a variety of areas. Each of the chapters actually begins with a story where we dig fairly deeply. And we found that the greatest lesson of all is evolution. There's evolution on a very quick scale. You respond to stimulus. There's also on a macro level. If there's a mega trend, what are you doing fundamentally for your capabilities? And so ultimately, the Live Enterprise emulates nature, which in some respects is the greatest R&D program of all.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you so much. As I hear you, nature remains the primary teacher. Rafi, if I were to draw on some of the points that Jeff has articulated, the concept of quantum organizations becomes excessively evident. So my next question to you is, what is a quantum organization?
Sure, Padma. I think in a quantum organization, the goal is to have very high velocity of ideas and innovations, right? Because it's very easy to have innovations that are 1C, 2Cs or 3s. But if you want to do thousands of innovations at scale, you need a different operating model and an organization structure. So the quantum organization essentially enables these thousands of innovations that can happen at any point in time. But how does it do it, right? So the way we do that is, rather than focusing on a specific idea or innovation, the focus is on creating the platform or the shared digital infrastructure using which the employees, partners, and the network members can use these platforms and tools to create their own innovations. Because, sitting here, you can't think of innovation in a particular market, in a particular segment. But if you give the tools and platforms, then the users in that segment, in that market, can use them in order to do it. And so that's the first part, which is platform to create more platforms. The second is then to have this model of micro enterprise, right, where you have these smaller teams that operate in a distributed agile model that use these platforms and tools in order to create innovations and solutions that are very relevant to that market, to their clients and their need. And the third thing is having that persistence to do this on a regular basis. And this is where a micro change comes in, which is, a lot of times we say you can't eat an elephant in one big bite. You need to eat bite by bite, so when you're tackling a larger problem, how do you break it into smaller problems and then do this micro change, one change at a time, every 6 weeks. And that's essentially what it is. But the most important ingredient of this also is a culture of collaboration and openness, right? Because you want to bring all the key stakeholders together, work in a collaborative, open and trusted manner, so that the innovations that you do can essentially be taken to the market at a much faster pace in weeks than in months and years.
Thank you, Rafi. You did mention about micro change, but I think what really hit us is the macro change in form of the global health crisis, and it has had an unprecedented impact on all walks of life. The view from the corporate world is vastly distorted too. So my question to you is, Jeff, looking ahead, what is the role of reskilling in the future of work?
Padma, as I answer this, if you can also cue up the graphic that I think we have. Companies cannot simply hire their way to success in the next trend. They need to develop the people they already have and help them continually gain skills. Certainly this means training. Certainly it means that you have an investment in the training. It's more than that as well, though. If you can put the graphic up, I don't see it up yet. It requires a whole new mindset, fresh mindset and approach to career architecture. That phrase, career architecture, you're actually thinking about employees and as they develop and grow. You mentioned quantum organization, remodeling the organization for digital. How is it different based upon the emergence of AI, how training's delivered, how people are working together, in some cases in a disconnected or remote way. Redefine the jobs, especially for digital. Data scientists, analysts, network engineers, hardware, software, Internet of Things, all kinds of job roles didn't even exist before, and now they're in high demand. And how do you actually create a career architecture so people can get promoted and they can apply to them? This all sounds mundane, and yet it's fundamental for a company to be successful, for people to be attracted and stay. Third, you want to create specialization as a new currency for talent, not just generalization and being an inch deep and a mile wide, as they say. In a world of continuous learning, you do need to go deep, and the next thing comes along, you learn something else and something else. And so this idea, which goes to the fourth thing, is you're building a skills-based ecosystem that rewards demonstrated expertise, not simply degrees or seniority. And that's uncomfortable for some people because they worked hard for those degrees in many cases, and you have years of experience. What about the person who didn't go to that same school but has the right skills, and they have relevant skills, and they've got different kinds of experiences? And those four areas we see to develop the people you have, in addition to training, and that is the essence of reskilling, because it isn't just about giving somebody a skill, it's about developing their career.
Thank you, Jeff. That again brings us to the core that we've always said, people at the heart of all that we do. My next question to you, Rafi. Therefore, what should companies consider when they make a post-pandemic pivot? What would be your recommendation?
Sure. Thanks, Padma. I think the pivot has to be around four key areas. The first is, I think this decade will be an exponential decade, right? And largely because of all the investments that are happening on digital, on cloud. By the middle of this decade, most of the organizations would already start operating across multiple clouds, right? And polycloud, the way we call multiple clouds, would become the norm. Second is data, I think, will play a critical role. Everything will become data-oriented. Businesses will become a lot more data-driven, and this requires the connected data. And cloud, in a way, is going to accelerate the investments and mining of insights and actions from data. And also, I think this will also essentially drive AI in enterprise space, right? Because we are reaching the second inflection point of AI, where last decade was all about AI in consumer tech space, and this decade it will be about AI in enterprise tech space. And we're already now starting to see some of these AI projects move from pilot to production scale projects, right? Like at Infosys, we have now created an AI cloud, which is to democratize. So one, this whole exponential technologies will drive this. Now to do all of it, we need hybrid talent, right? We need talent that essentially brings a combination of these different skills. And this will also be a decade where humans, bots, and the gigs have to work together, right? And they will all come together in order to drive significant value. And all of these, again, we believe will happen through micro changes, which is the third part. And once you have your exponential technologies, you have data and you have the talent, then becoming sentient, which is the ability of an organization to sense, process, and respond, becomes very easy. And the sentient will be the fourth thing, that we will see a lot of organizations become very intelligent, start making a lot of intuitive decisions, and essentially freeing up time for the employees to focus more on higher order thinking and value-added activities.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rafi. Thank you so much, Jeff. With your permission, if I could just play a devil's advocate as I ask the next question to you. How do we know if the live enterprise model will work? Where are the proof points?
This is probably one of the least appreciated and, for me, one of the most gratifying questions or areas, because leading a consulting unit for many years, working with different clients, it was hard sometimes to bring something that was already proven, because many people are trying new things. In this case, like Nandan said, we applied it to ourselves. Even prior to that, the ADAR, Unique Identification Initiative, he did it at scale, 1.2 billion people in 6 years. It was, and it estimated it was going to take 40. And it was open source. And there's all kind of good things that happened. And the lessons from that we began to apply. And so we already began with some momentum, I think, with some proven concepts. And then we found at the pilot levels, at the business levels, Rafi and his team, some of my team and other business units have worked, where I think that every 6 weeks we could see results, sometimes small, but like a ratchet. Every time it clicks, it doesn't go back to what it was before. It just keeps going. And like compound interest, it generated returns. What are those returns? Well, one physical manifestation was those 240,000 employees that in a few days were able to work remotely. That didn't happen by accident. It was because of all the hard work and the efforts and results prior. Second, our employee satisfaction. Employees for many years, as Rafi said, had gotten maybe second fiddle or short shrift compared to customers or clients. And because that experience has been there, the experience index, which has gone up to 85, which is a very high number in our scheme of things, that has also been good feedback. And then also the client satisfaction, we call them client value scores. They're the highest ever now. So clients are seeing this. They saw it in the crucible of the pandemic, of stress, of a lot going on, and we stood by them. And we were able to do that because the Live Enterprise model allowed us to operate and translate these strategies and ideas into execution. And then a couple of other monetary things. Brand Finance, which is the world's leading brand valuation firm, recognized Infosys as one of the top 10 IT services growing brands, and actually reaching top 4 global status for all the industries related. And that was a big step up for us over the past 18 months. And finally, not that you look to the markets, but it is an indicator. We've more than doubled our market capitalization over the last 3 years, from 33 to 70 plus billion. And again, that's a bit ephemeral. At the same time, it meant that for a period of time that the market recognized financial performance. There's an old saying, you really can't say you're performing in one of other areas if you're not also demonstrating that you can generate financial returns. So taken together, we're proud of that, but most importantly, I think it sets the conversation that large companies, medium-sized companies, and small companies out there can say, you know, maybe I can see if this model is applicable to us. And the reason Rafi and I wrote the book, and Infosys wanted to share it, wasn't just to go get business. It's because we believe, especially in the world today, these concepts are more important than ever. So if we share them, whether or not they work with us, we hope people employ them and work with them, because the world needs leaders, it needs success, and hopefully the model can provide that. And these proof points, I think, give people the confidence to take that first step.
Thank you so much, Jeff. So in a nutshell, you're saying that this is a narrative of our own talking, of our walking. And if I can come to Rafi with my last question, after a year of unprecedented change, what can go wrong and how do you avoid it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question that actually we think every time, right? So every time we have our 6-week review, that's the question that we keep thinking. So the first thing I think is, we can always fall into the trap of doing it for the sake of technology, right? So it's easy to say, okay, there is some cool technology, some new technology, let's try and do it. I think the first thing that is to not fall into that trap and also focus on why are we doing it and what is the outcome that we want to deliver. And I think keeping that focus is the most important thing, so that you don't fall into trap of tech. The second is, a lot of times, the vision can be very big, and a lot of times it can also be very overwhelming, right, as to so many things to do. So the trick again is to break it down into small parts, and what we have seen over the course of 3 years is, when we have done these micro changes 6 weeks at a time, the compounding effect of it has been significant over a period of 3 years, right, because the gravity of the organization has moved significantly. The third thing is, a lot of times, we may also fall into the trap of creating these new features, new functionality, when you do these new ideas, innovations and releases. So, rather than falling into this, the focus always has to be keeping it very simple, right, and focusing on how the users are using, what is required to drive adoption, what is required in order to drive velocity in sales, velocity in innovation, and driving better efficiency and all that. And the last important thing is to be complacent and think that you have accomplished everything, right? And live enterprise, that's why we say is not a destination. Because today, if we look at the maturity, from inception to maturity, for any new technology, it only takes about 4 to 5 years, which means every few years, a technology which is relevant today may not be relevant. So you have to continuously evolve, and you need to have an architecture that is designed to evolve. So ensuring that this continues and continuously evolves and we learn from the experience is important. Otherwise, if we think that it is a one-time activity, then it will again become stale very soon, and we need to rethink everything every few years.
Thank you. Rafi and Jeff, once again, thank you. We promised you it would be a conversation with a lot of insights from the authors. You will agree, we are now armed with more insights and perspectives about the live enterprise naturally. It is now an opportune moment for me to invite our friends from the media to pose their questions to the authors. And with that, we will now turn our focus and invite the media. May I please start off by reading Ms. Shivani Shinde's question from Business Standard, and I will pose the first question. What stops India to use India Stack and solve some other larger issues? Other than Aadhaar and UPI, we have not seen large disruptive use of technology to solve the problems of billions.
Why don't you take that?
Yeah, sure. So I think I will just, again, respond in the context of a live enterprise. I think the ideas that we have seen with respect to Aadhaar, the ideas we have seen with respect to UPI is all about how do you design to evolve, and it is also about creating a layered innovation, right? And essentially, because if you look at even the India Stack, the Aadhaar in a way becomes the presence-less layer, and on top of it there are a number of different layers that have been created. So I think at least a lot of solutions that we see are pigging back on some of these things, and in a live enterprise we have embraced that idea of designing to evolve. We have embraced the idea of layered innovation, and a lot of work that we are doing in the context of enterprise space. We are actually bringing this thinking and applying it in the context of our clients, be it in India as well as outside.
I'll now pose the second question from Shivani. Entrepreneurship was the most often used a decade back or so when we talk of live enterprises. How are companies looking to encourage this aspect amongst employees? How can large companies use the startup culture to disrupt in a fast-changing environment?
If you like. I think it's a great question because it goes to the heart of the quantum organization that Rafi described earlier. Having a lot of small teams and yet something central that you can launch. So one from the top, encouraging ideas, and not an idea, not a small group off to the side that has the idea, the entire employee base to generate ideas, and when they have one, to fund them in a small way and give them resources. And much like a venture capital mindset, as ideas start to take shape, and the more successful ones, you fund more, you nurture them, and maybe you restrict or stop funding others and allocate resources. So I think the answer is have that duality of many small teams that are being encouraged in a democratized way, while you have a central shared digital infrastructure to support those teams, and frequently evaluate where things are. I think entrepreneurship is a very important concept still. I think being able to harness the power of an enterprise, the economic moat that you may have, the legacy and traditions, those are things that are positive. If you can then strip away what used to be maybe static or not being flexible or agile, and convert that to this agility with those other assets, there's nothing like it. And I think we're seeing the rebirth of the entrepreneur in a corporate ecosystem that will even be more competitive compared to small enterprises that can never quite scale, but it'll just be niche firms.
Yeah, if I can just add one point, see, entrepreneurship is also at the heart of a live enterprise. So if you look at this Meridian platform that we are in, when we moved into pandemic, we came up with this idea and a concept that we need to enable remote collaboration and do it in a very seamless way, right? And over weeks, our ETA team, the wider Infosys team came all together and essentially brought this concept into a production solution in weeks, and after that we have been able to now take this to a lot of our clients, right? So entrepreneurship is at the heart of a live enterprise, because what we see is if we want to increase velocity of ideas, we need to create a platform where a lot of these innovations can happen at scale, and also they will get the foundation that is required in order to build these kind of innovations at a rapid pace.
Let me add one more thing, since you mentioned entrepreneurship. A vivid example is Lex. We had this learning program, and our colleague, Thiru, and our education group did a fantastic job of helping our employees learn. They didn't stop there. He was then tasked, can you take this externally? Can you share this? Clients had asked for it. So literally, he steps into a market-facing role and is leading a business. If that's not an entrepreneurship. So several situations like that, including this Meridian platform, have occurred in the past 2 and 3 years during the live enterprise model's development, where an idea that was successfully implemented internally, someone said, can you take that externally? And they became true entrepreneurs. So I think that's also fostering a sense of development, both internally and externally.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, Shivani from Business Standard, for your question. I'd now like to invite Chandra Shrikant from Money Control, who joins us on audio. If you could unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Hi, thank you for that. Couple of questions for both Jeff and Ravi. In a sense, through the Enterprise Live book, you've showed what playbook it will take for enterprises to be more agile, lessons from perhaps what Infosys has done right. Did you have to constantly struggle with, just how much you could put out in the book? Because, this is something that you're opening up to every company, every enterprise in the world. So how did you really navigate that in terms of how much you can potentially reveal about a playbook, what you cannot reveal? And secondly, what are the top 2 or 3 things that you hope readers will get out of this? I mean, be it entrepreneurs in the startup space or, enterprises as large as yours. Thank you.
Why don't you start, Rafi, and I'll
Sure.
step in.
No, I think our goal right from the outset has been that, we wanted to share as much as possible with everyone, because largely, one, we wanted to share this with our clients because they are going through a similar transformation journey, and we thought whatever learnings we have, whatever best practices we have seen work with us, as well as when we applied this live enterprise thinking to our clients, we wanted to share. So a lot of details on the operating model, a lot of details on thinking and how we have done is all shared, because what we also believed is as we did this process, it also helped mature our thinking significantly. But then there are obviously certain details with respect to IP and platforms, right? So there are a lot of underlying platforms that are part of our digital infrastructure, be it our Polycloud platform, our AI cloud, the Meridian platform, and the learning platform, and knowledge graph, digital brain. So there are a lot of these where a lot of minute level details are not there in the book, right? It gives you more at a conceptual level. But wherever we had an IP and patent, we have ensured that, those are protected, because some of these are IPs that we have also patented, right? So that's the first part. And sorry, the second part of the question, I missed.
So I asked, what are the 2 or 3 things that you hope enterprises can learn from reading this book? I mean, it could be startups, it could be entrepreneurs, it could be companies in other industries.
Sure. Thanks so much, Chandra. So I think I would say 3 things. One is, a lot of times when organizations embark on this large transformation journey, everybody thinks in months and years, right? And they think that we need to plan. Let's say if I'm doing a strategy and design, I need to do it in months, and then we need to start. So one, we wanted to convey to them that, while the vision can always be big, you can start small. Start small, rapidly experiment, rapidly innovate, learn from that, and then essentially start scaling and doing more and more of it, right? So that's the first takeaway or learning. The second is have a platform mindset. I think it's very important that we need to think of platforms and not feature and function. Because, the moment I think of building a particular feature or function, for example, if I think that I want to create a collaboration solution, then you only end up creating a collaboration solution. Whereas in a platform mindset, we are thinking, what does anybody need to collaborate? They need an ability to talk, they need an ability to share, they need an ability to chat. And if you unbundle everything and create it as a set of platform services and platform, then what we find is, the users or developers can use these services in order to create things that we have never imagined, create solutions that we have never thought of, right? And that is what essentially drives a lot of innovation. So that's the second part. And third part is, if we want to drive, third part is also about having the model, operating model, right? Which is essentially the live enterprise model, which is like a map. So when a lot of organizations start, be it a startup or a mid-sized company or a large company, you need a map that tells you how technology is evolving and how to leverage these technologies in order to prepare for future and create a future state architecture. So what a live enterprise model is giving them is a map, right? So a map doesn't tell you what should be the map. Essentially, it helps you navigate and define where you want to go and how do you reach there. And this is something that they can use, because this is 3 years of our own learning from our experience as well as our clients' experience that we have brought together in the book. that I believe could be another great takeaway for the users.
The only thing I'd like to add, Rafi, is that I think in the idea of us sharing...
Yeah, Chandra.
The idea of sharing so much is in the new age. I think in the past, people may have tried to hide things a little bit or say, you must buy this first or we'll reveal it to you later. I think in this age of transparency and moving quickly, you share your best content, you lead with your good ideas, and you get people engaged and you co-create, and then together you fill in the details. Together you have that journey. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we're sharing so much. And also it's a good thing to share, like I said. And then lastly, all the points Rafi meant, the only addition I would have is this hunger or this learnability, this intellectual curiosity to continue to learn. There is no failure if there's learning. And if you do it quickly, like these micro changes, then even mistakes or things that didn't turn out the way you thought are incorporated into the next. And so the failures become learnings. Those are the things we'd like to leave with you.
Thank you, Rafi.
Thank you, Jeff. You said last 3 years, but I'm assuming a lot of things would have, dramatically changed after COVID. So, in terms of the way you've structured the book, is it, more skewed towards a post-pandemic world? Just want to understand how it kind of changed the way you looked at the book.
No, see, I think I wouldn't say that it has significantly changed post-COVID, because a lot of this thinking we started doing 3 years back. So almost 3 years back, we were thinking of an anytime, anywhere operating model. We were thinking of cloud first. We were thinking AI first. We were thinking mobile first. We were thinking employee-centric. So these were all things that, we were thinking 3 years ahead. What COVID did is, COVID essentially tested our resiliency, right? So till now, it was all about a concept that we were working on. And when this whole COVID hit us last year, the entire live enterprise infrastructure and solutions got stress tested and resiliency tested. And that way, I think most of the things that we had done more or less were there, but there were some few things that came out, right? Like policy changes. So when you are now working in an anytime, anywhere operating model, some of the policies may have to be done differently. So some of those nuances came up, but a lot of it did not change, and they were always part of our vision 3 years back.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rafi and Jeff. Thank you, Chandra, for those questions. I will now ask the questions that we have received from Shilpa Fadnis of the Times of India. GAFA, or the acronym for Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple. The GAFA Brigade are the orchestrators of digital transformation with a unique proposition. Do you think the Live Enterprise built a digital landscape by marrying the best of both the worlds?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and you're right that with Live Enterprise, I think what we are aspiring to provide is more choices, right? Choices to use the right cloud provider, the right technology provider, the right solution provider, and also the choice to, have minimal lock-in as well, right? So that the enterprises, based on their strategy, can use the best of either what the public cloud provides, what the private cloud provides, or what the different hyperscaler or technology solution providers are providing. So it's about providing the ability to have more choices and marrying these to build infrastructure for future.
Let me add to that. I think Rafi addressed the cloud aspect and bringing the GAFA as partners. I think there's another dimension to this. It's very deep-seated. I think leaders and even individual contributing professionals have both of this anxiety about how they're going to compete with these hyperscalers, very successful digital native companies. And also, I won't say envy, but wait a minute, we've been around for 40 plus years. Why can't we be like that? Why can't we take some of that magic and make it in our company? And so that's one of the reasons we wanted to create and share the Live Enterprise model, is we do believe that elements of what makes Google and Amazon and Apple, who they are, can be learned. There are aspects of the model that if you apply them, you will get good results. And hopefully the operating model is a bit of a map and a guide to some of that as well.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff and Rafi. I'd now like to invite Ayan Pramanik from the Economic Times. He joins us on the audio line. Request you to unmute yourself and ask your question, Ayan. Ayan Pramanik, if you're with us, if you could unmute yourself and ask your question. All right. With that, we bring this particular segment to a close. Conversations, if anything, in the last few months have become sparse. So, at the outset, thank you for joining in for a hearty conversation. It was a fascinating discussion, you will agree, or shall I say, a lively discussion with the enterprising authors. Before we bring this session to a close, I would like to express our gratitude to Nandan for his presence today and thought leadership always. Sincere thank you to all our media friends. As the saying goes, not without you. And thank you, Rafi and Jeff, for a journey inside the Live Enterprise. The Live Enterprise book is now available in a special India paperback edition from Amazon and at all renowned booksellers. The Kindle version is also available from Amazon India. Thank you so much for having joined us today. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.